All right, so the effects of comprehension on eye movements in film are small. Okay, we've shown, again, a small effect. Okay, and this led us to a question. Can we find a stronger effect of cognition or thinking on eye movements in film by using an explicit task? Okay, so if we give them something to do, okay, when we showed them the video, we didn't tell them to do anything. They're just watching it and just trying to comprehend it because they want to, okay? So we gave them a map drawing task like this, okay? So we had a new group of participants and we said, all right, we're going to show you a video clip, and in this video clip, you're going to see people going through a city at night, and you're going to see different places, and we want you to, after you finish watching the video clip, we're going to give you a piece of paper and ask you to draw a map of all the places that you saw in the video clip. And we want you to be able to label as many of those places as possible, okay? And we will grade you for your accuracy, how well you could do. And we did do that, okay? And notice that this task is at odds with comprehending the story. At odds with means competing with, okay? This task is competing with understanding the story. That is, if you're trying to pay attention to all the locations so you can draw a map of it from memory, you are probably not paying attention to the story. Okay? So we had 75 new viewers who only did the map task. And we compared them to the context group that made the inference. And we're going to now call that the comprehension group. Okay? So these are the people who knew about the bomb and they made the inference so they understood it well. Okay? All right. And then they both saw the whole clip. Okay? And then after it, the people in the map task, they had to draw the map with as many locations and names as possible. And our measures are the same as the last experiment. And for our data analysis, we first scored the maps. We used a computer program called the Gardoni Map Analyzer, and this actually was able to say which maps were better maps and which maps were worse maps. And I won't explain the whole thing, but it works very well. And so basically, then what we did is we took the top half. We took out of the 75, we picked the 37 who had the best map scores, because we assumed these people really were doing the task. They were doing the map task because they were in the top 50%. Okay? Because some of our participants, at the end, we gave them the paper and they said, "What's that?" And we're like, "You're supposed to draw the map." They're like, "Oh, I forgot." So we didn't want to compare them because they're not doing the task. Okay. All right. Okay. And interestingly, and also, we only picked the ones who did not make the inference. And basically, only 18% of the participants made the inference in the map task. Okay? So they were not comprehending the story very well. Okay? All right. So here is proportion of car fixations, and here's the time. And now we have the two groups, the comprehension group and the map task group. And what you can see is now we have a big effect. Okay? So the people in the map task group are looking at the car a lot less than the people in the comprehension group. Okay? Here's a huge difference. Okay? And we have other differences here. And so when you put it all together for this whole time period, it was a big difference. Okay? So we are getting differences due to not understanding the story, but due to cognition, due to thinking. Okay? All right. And notice that this task, again, is at odds with comprehension. Okay? So a task that's going against understanding the film is having a bigger effect on attention than the comprehension of the film. Okay? So here are some questions that we have tested. And this comes from SPECT. What's the effect of the back end on the front end? So does constructing the current event model influence attentional selection in film? And what we've seen is it only does a little bit, just a little bit. Okay? There are small differences in gaze similarity due to the inference in the James Bond Moonraker. We saw the small difference there. And we found the small difference in the first looks at the car in The Touch of Evil, what we call the agent effect. So we found the small difference there. Okay? But we found a much bigger effect of goal-driven executive attention. Executive attention is when you are deciding where you're going to pay attention. For example, if you want to be a careful driver and when you come up to an intersection and you don't have to stop, but if there's no stop sign, but maybe you carefully pay attention to look both ways, that is executive attention. Okay? And that's what they're doing with the map task. This has a much stronger effect on eye movements in film. So if we go back to the model and we say, what is this effect of the current event model and mapping incoming information on the front-end process of attentional selection, what we can say is that in these two studies, we find a weak effect. Okay, we only find a weak effect of the event model, but probably a much bigger effect of visual saliency. That is, things that pop out, stuff in the movie that are brighter or moving or somehow different and that captures your eyes. Okay? And also the executive processes, attentional control and goal setting. This seems to have a much bigger effect, okay, in our two experimental case studies. All right, so I have a few remaining questions. And so are our results replicable and generalizable? Okay, so that is, could other people get the same results that we have gotten? Do our results with our two experimental case studies, are they actually representing reality? Okay, will other people find the same results? Well, we did get the same general results in two experimental case studies, and those are using two very different clips. Okay, the James Bond Moonraker had one shot every 2 seconds. The Touch of Evil had no cuts. It was all one long shot for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And the Touch of Evil had many things to look at. Okay, but we still got similar results. However, future studies that use many different video clips would be even better. On the other hand, if you look at the very small number of other studies that have looked at something kind of similar, okay, eye movement studies with film or video, their results are actually suggesting the same results that we got, the tyranny of film. And let me tell you, there's only two studies I know of that can fit that. One is by Wang et al. And what they did is they took a bunch of film clips that were long shots. Okay? And then what they did was they either showed people the normal film clip with no cuts, and they tracked their eyes, or they divided it up into small sections, small shots, and then they shuffled, they randomized the order, okay? And obviously, when you're watching a film clip and it has been cut up into little bits and then shuffled, your understanding will have to be a lot worse, okay? And other studies have shown that. They didn't measure that in this study, but we know it's going to be a lot worse, okay? But their eye movements, the only differences they found in eye movements were at the cuts. Remember how I showed you whenever there's a cut, people will move their eyes to the center of the screen and that creates an increase in attentional synchrony for a brief moment? Okay? Do you guys remember that? Like in the James Bond every time there's a cut, first the attentional seeking goes down, then it goes up, because everybody looks at the center. Okay, that's the only effect that they had on eye movements. Okay, so that suggests not much effect of understanding. Okay, and then there's another newer study that just came out last year, Huff et al., and they showed people a soccer match. It was live, a live soccer match in Germany, and they had two teams that are arch rivals. These teams hate each other. Okay, and so they had the fans of the two teams watching, and they did eye movement measures. Okay, and what they found was they did find differences in judgments of which team contributed more to the game. So the fans of both teams thought that their team contributed more to the game. Okay, but they found no differences in the eye movements at all. Okay. So basically, these results suggest that we may find that our tyranny of film result is pretty generalizable. And then another remaining question, this is the last one. Is attention in film viewing more bottom-up or stimulus-driven than reading because of a few different things? One, film has motion. Okay? When you're reading, the text doesn't have any motion. Okay? But in film, there's always motion. Okay? And motion grabs attention. Okay? And when you're watching a film, you don't usually view it at your own pace. In reading, you read at your own pace, usually. If you're reading a book, you decide when you're going to go, or if you want to look back, you can do that. If you want to continue, you make your own mind. But most people, when they watch a movie, they just watch it at the pace of the movie. Okay? So we have shown that the event model, or understanding, does influence eye movements in picture stories. So we use picture stories, and then we manipulated the understanding, and we did that with inferences, and we showed that there was a big effect. Okay. So, and these have no motion because it's a picture story, and viewing was self-paced. So what this suggests is that maybe movies have an especially high attentional control. And this goes back to that quote from Steven Spielberg, where he was talking about how he loves it when he watches an audience watching a movie and their heads are going back, left, and right, all together at the same time, everybody knowing where to look at that time. So maybe movies are special this way. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. And do you have any questions?